Queen health fears after meeting Charles 2 days before he tested positive for COVID. The Queen came into contact with Prince Charles just 2 days before he tested positive for COVID-19. Her Majesty was being closely monitored last night but not showing any symptoms. The risks of the 95-year-old monarch catching the virus will have caused grave fears among her family and advisors, despite the fact she has been triple vaccinated. Buckingham Palace declined to say whether she had tested positive or negative, but a palace source said she was not displaying any signs of having the virus. She came into direct contact with Charles in the 48 hours before he tested positive on Thursday morning. The Queen had met her son at Windsor Castle on Tuesday when he was at her Berkshire residence to host an investiture. A royal source said that the situation will continue to be monitored but a running commentary will not be provided on the monarch's health. COVID patients are said to be most infectious 2 days before symptoms develop. She will take daily lateral flow tests for 7 days under government guidelines for fully vaccinated contacts of COVID patients. In the 48 hours before the positive test, the prince had also met Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, Chancellor Rishi Sunak, and Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, the new Chief of the Defence Staff. Charles, 73, is now isolating after contracting the virus for a second time. He first tested positive for COVID in March 2020 at the start of the pandemic and described how he lost his sense of taste and smell but was fortunate to experience only minor symptoms at a time when there were no vaccinations. Charles found out he had it again after a routine test yesterday morning. The news forced him to cancel a scheduled trip to Winchester, where more than 1,000 people were gathered waiting for him to unveil a statue. A Clarence House spokesman said, "This morning, the Prince of Wales has tested positive for COVID-19 and is now self-isolating. His Royal Highness is deeply disappointed not to be able to attend today's events in Winchester and will look to reschedule his visit as soon as possible." Aides declined to discuss his medical condition but the fact his diagnosis came in a routine test suggested he was not experiencing strong symptoms. The prince, who is triple vaccinated, was with Camilla at a reception for the British Asian Trust at the British Museum in London on Wednesday evening. There were 350 guests, including Mr. Sunak and Home Secretary Priti Patel. Earlier, he had visited the National Gallery in London. On Tuesday, he handed out honours at the Windsor investiture and also met Mr. Starmer at Clarence House. Chefs Margot and Fergus Henderson were made OBEs by the prince at the ceremony in Windsor Castle. Cultural activist Ansel Wong was made a CBE for services to arts and culture. Charles also attended a dinner for the Professional Teaching Institute at St. James's Palace. Clarence House said it was following government guidelines, under which any close contacts will have to be contacted and asked to take daily tests. Charles's wife Camilla was on a series of public engagements in West London and Buckinghamshire yesterday and said it was lucky that she had produced a negative result in a routine test yesterday. Charles sent a message to the people of Winchester, expressing his disappointment that he was unable to travel to the city. He had been due to unveil a statue of Lycorisha of Winchester, a prominent Jewish moneylender who was murdered in 1277 during a period of anti-Semitism. The prince had wanted to unveil the statue as part of his work promoting ethnic tolerance. Nigel Atkinson, Hampshire's Lord Lieutenant, had to inform the waiting crowd of Charles's diagnosis, moments before he was due to arrive. In his message, Charles said, "I am so sorry that I cannot be with you today. I am desperately disappointed as I was so looking forward to marking this historic occasion with you. I hope very much that I will be able to visit at a future time. But for today please accept my most heartfelt apologies and my very best wishes as you mark this memorable occasion for Winchester." It was left to the Lord Lieutenant, with the aid of some local schoolchildren, to unveil the statue of Lycorisha, which has a plaque at its base saying it was unveiled by the Prince of Wales. Under the current COVID rules in England, Charles must isolate for at least 5 days and up to 10 days. with you. I hope very much that I will be able to visit at a future time. But for today please accept my most heartfelt apologies and my very best wishes as you mark this memorable occasion for Winchester. It was left to the Lord Lieutenant, with the aid of some local schoolchildren, to unveil the statue of Licoricia, which has a plaque at its base saying it was unveiled by the Prince of Wales. Under the current COVID rules in England, Charles must isolate for at least 5 days and up to 10 days.